Every time I look at the Nintendo Switch eShop, I'm pleasantly surprised by looking at the coming soon section and seeing more and more Japanese games coming to Nintendo's new handheld. Today I've got coverage for you for a very, very Japanese game about a Japanese schoolgirl taking down demons and monsters with a sword. Compared to the likes of Devil May Cry on other platforms, here is my review of the Japanese action game Mitsurugi Kamui Hikae for the Nintendo Switch. And I'm sure I butchered that name, so for the rest of this review I will refer to it as MKH. The plot of MKH revolves around two students, Misa and Suzuka, members of a group known as the Blade Templars, whom are responsible for protecting the world from demons and demonic threats. When Suzuka steals a demonic blade and kills their teacher with it, Misa is sent after her to put an end to both the sword and Suzuka herself. Now the story does a decent setup for the gameplay, but there's no real depth to it. You play as Misa, you're hunting after Suzuka, but there's never really any character development between the two characters. It's just a setting and that's pretty much it. But where a game lacks in one area, it has strength in another, right? When it comes to gameplay, MKH is a 3D arena brawler. A good way of describing it is, imagine Croiler Sigma except with Koei Tecmo style of characters. That's basically what this looks like. As a 3D brawler, you're going to be running around small 3D arenas, fighting off wave after wave of enemies with various combo-based attacks. Now when you go into the game, you only really have two gameplay-based game modes to go through. From the main menu, you've got New Game, which is the story campaign, Tutorial, which teaches you all of the different game mechanics. Then you've got Options, Credits, and Achievements, which are more menu-based, with Options just giving you small settings, Credits letting you see who made the game, and Achievements showing off the in-game achievement and trophy system. But let's get to the actual gameplay game modes. As I said a moment ago, the tutorial is just a basic rundown of how everything works in the game. You just go from lesson to lesson, learning how attacks work, how the bleed system works, and all around just preparing yourself for the actual campaign. Now when you start a new game for the campaign, you choose a difficulty and you're sent through various stages to fight through enemies. The way this works is you're dropped in a stage, you fight off 5 waves of enemies, and then you fight a boss and move on to the next stage. It's pretty simple for the most part, but it does get a little more in-depth when you actually start doing combat. The way combat works is you can freely move around the arena, and you have a few different types of attacks you can do. Your main ones being hand-to-hand combat and sword play, which can be comboed off of one another to create attack strings. Your goal with fighting each enemy is to do enough damage to make them flash red, which means they are in bleeding status. At that point, you can do a special skill to do critical damage to them, heal yourself, and more often than not, kill them in the process. This is also a very critical part of boss fights, because all of the bosses can counter and parry almost every attack that you throw at them. So you have to dodge around a lot and get damage in when there are openings until they go into bleeding status, where their defense temporarily drops and you can do combos to them like you can most normal enemies. Now I'll admit, when I first started the game from stage 1, combat felt like there wasn't a whole lot to it. There were a couple very basic combos you could do with hand-to-hand fighting and sword play, but not much else. The depth of combat starts showing up once you start defeating enemies and gaining skill points from them. Once you gain enough skill points, you can go into the upgrade screen to unlock and upgrade new skills to use, giving you a lot more to do. The very basic short combos you start out with quickly turn into rapid, varied combo types that can easily chain into one another, creating near infinite combo chains. And once I started unlocking all of these extra skills, I really started to have fun, and the real depth of the combat really started to shine. Unfortunately, combat can't all be good, because there's this little thing called the camera that can make things quite frustrating. First of all, there's no auto lock feature, and it's very difficult for you to see enemies that are coming up on you unless you manually move the camera in mid-combo. And the auto targeting seems to have a mind of its own. There were a lot of times where I would point the analog stick towards one specific enemy, and in mid-combo, my character would completely abandon that enemy and go towards another set of enemies on the other side of the map. That's not to say the game still isn't fun, but those two things definitely make it a bit frustrating. But not to worry, you won't have to be frustrated for long because this, unfortunately, is not a very long game. Depending on your difficulty setting, one run through the story campaign should take you no more than 1 or 2 hours. After you do that, you're done with the main story, and the only real point of post-game is to go through the other difficulties to unlock different costumes. Now let's touch on presentation. Visually, the game looks very good. The character models for Misa and Suzuka look incredibly detailed, especially when you see them up close during the story scenes. The problem with presentation is less on visual and performance and more on audio quality. Some of the sound effects as you fight very clearly sound like they are very, very low quality, especially when compared to the others. And now let's touch on battery life. This game was a pleasant surprise like many games before it. MKH has a battery range of 3 hours and 54 minutes with maximum settings, all the way up to 5 hours and 3 minutes with lower settings. That's a lot of time for a game in general, let alone a 3D game. Now in conclusion, MKH is a Japanese action game that's got a fun and in-depth combat system, but unfortunately it's brought down by a multitude of issues from its story and camera to the low quality audio. There's definitely some fun to be had here, but it doesn't come without frustration along with it. Reviews to Go rates Mitsurugi Kamui Hikae for the Nintendo Switch a 6.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, or head to the website at reviewstogo.com. Before I go, I just want to take a moment to thank all of my donators and patrons. I appreciate and use all donations that I receive to further both the quantity and quality of the content here on Reviews to Go. Thank you very much, and if any of you would like to donate, head over to patreon.com/reviewstogo, or if you'd rather do a one-time donation, head over to paypal.me/reviewstogo. Thanks again for watching the review. Have a great day.